Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Man's Podcast, where we talk about No Man's Land and Cataclysm and the road to No Man's Land and various other sundries and things. My name is Vincent Faust, and today I'm joined by two wonderful co-hosts who I will allow to introduce themselves.
Oh, I'm Michael Colley.
I'm Mike, but you already knew that.
It's a double Mike and Vince show. Michael Colley back for his second episode on the show. Welcome to be back. And
thank you. Glad to be here.
So this episode is Aftershock Part 2. It's not Aftershock. It's not really like a concrete arc, unlike, I guess, the very end of Cataclysm, whatever they called that. It's kind of like a little mini era umbrella arc. We took a break last episode for Brotherhood of the Fist. Now we're back into the full-on Gotham happenings. Interestingly, compared to a lot of Cataclysm, and I believe previous Aftershock episode, we really don't see much, and this is totally based on what issues we read, but we don't see much of the ancillary characters. We see Nightwing really quickly, and I think that might be it. And
we see him very briefly in this episode, and I think maybe we've seen him hanging out in the Batcave earlier in Road 2, Volume 1, but yeah, really that's it.
And we see Barbara, Oracle, but no Robin in this episode that I can remember. And,
well, he's there for a couple panels.
Yeah, no Huntress, no Spoiler, etc., etc.
I don't think we've had any Azrael yet in this book.
Yeah, we haven't seen Azrael in a little bit. But our follow-up second-time co-host, Michael, he's going to kick us off with the first issue of the day.
Okay. First issue we're covering in this episode is Shadow of the Bat 77. It's written by Alan Grant and drawn by Mark Buckingham. This story is a little one-off within the Aftershock storyline called Arwen's Theory of Devolution. Now, the premise of this issue is that this professor, his class all got killed during the earthquake, but he was likely in the closet at the time. But he, I don't know, was maybe traumatized by that, or maybe he was always crazy, I don't know. But then he comes out and he's like, oh, it's so lucky I didn't survive. Hey, the theory of evolution, it must be BS. It's not the strongest who survive, it's the luckiest. Which I'm pretty sure the actual theory of evolution probably takes luck into account, I'm sure, or like chance at least. Like he says something like, oh, evolution doesn't account for natural disasters, but I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. And it's awfully convenient. He has, his name is Arwen, rhymes with Darwin, and the devolution part of the title doesn't make much sense because it's still evolution, just survival of the luckiest. Anyway, we cut back and forth between he's got Batman blindfolded and walking across a balance beam. He's got his gun pointed at this thug guy. I think it turns out his name is Goofer. And then we see how they all got to this place. And he's trying to prove that if Batman is bad enough luck, he won't survive, even though he's got all his skills and stuff. And Goofer like grabs the gun and tries to kill him. He ends up dead. And yeah, I think Batman, this guy, get out. He just gives him over to emergency services. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think there's also a little bit of Batman fighting some looters again. There's quite a bit of that in here. Like We see the Batman is very disgusted with the people who are looting Gotham during this quake. He's quite mad at them for that. Calls them like leeches and stuff. And yeah, so it's a little one-off villain there. And oh, and it ends with a thought Batman has, which is the final cap off here. Maybe Darwin was wrong. It's not the fittest who survive, but it's not the luckiest either. Only survivors survive.
Which is pretty genius. I mean, survivors survive. I thought this issue was fine. I thought the pace scene, like flipping back and forth between what happened like 15 minutes ago and the present, I didn't think that was really necessary. It didn't really add to it. Could have just
Yeah,
gone
me neither.
Yeah.
But it's a fine like one-off issue with like a quick gimmick.
I wasn't
Yeah,
I wasn't thrilled by the whole de-evolution premise. I thought it could have been done better. Though I like Buckingham's visuals with when you find out that the professor's just been teaching to a class of his dead decomposing students.
Yeah,
I thought
that was a great spread.
that was good. I think as this is going on, I don't think I'm a Buckingham fan. His faces are really, really weird.
Yeah. Arwen's face was really weird, like chin's really big in some of these shots.
Yep.
And
I know I'm not I can say by now that I am not a fan of his Bruce Wayne.
yeah. I feel like through a lot of eras, you don't really have a consistent image for Bruce Wayne. Kind of changes with the times. Whereas I would say Bruce Wayne's been pretty consistent since like the Capullo era. I mean, like the current Bruce Wayne, I kind of think of Mikel Janin, who pretty much draws him very similarly to the way Capullo did.
I mean, Aparo and Brayfocal's Bruces are good, but that's because they're Aparo and Brayfocal.
Yeah. So our next issue is Batman 557, Doug Monk and Vince Giordano on art. And we get the introduction to this podcast of the edgelord mercenary Ballistic. And he's hired to receive a buried case, which is somewhere in Gotham. Got some evidence in it. And hired by some mysterious guys. It's not really clear exactly who they are. But an important thing, he's a former Gotham City Police Department cop, and he always does the right thing. And he's like, as long as I'm doing the right thing, we're cool. But of course, they don't want him. You know, this is not just some average little task. So they're immediately not cool with him and pull their guns. So then he shoots one of them, and then he's like, I'm going to do the mission anyway. So they put a hit on him. So he rides into Gotham, and all these generic goons are trying to get him. And this is where Batman crawls out and comes across him. And Batman is supposed to remember Ballistic, but he doesn't remember him because Ballistic was introduced in a Bloodlines annual, Batman Annual 17. And Bloodlines, it's kind of funny to me because Bloodlines overlaps with both Nightfall and Death of Superman. And it's at the point where during Nightfall, it's John Palavali as the current Batman while Bruce is trying to recover. And during Death of Superman is during the reign. So all of the four replacement Supermen deal with the Bloodlines parasites. So Batman, Bruce Wayne Batman, and Clark Kent Superman were off the board during Bloodlines, the infamous annuals crossover with weird parasite monsters, which also introduced new characters, most of which are totally irrelevant, except for Hitman by Garth Ennis. And so Ballistic is like, hey, I know you, Batman. And Batman's like, nope. And basically they like fight some people, and there's back and forth because Ballistic carries around guns, and he uses guns, but he doesn't shoot people with them. He uses them to like shoot debris to get the people out in the open and
I
stuff.
want to really, we really need to take in how 90s of a character Ballistic is. He's got the the standard ponytail with a mullet on top, with like, he's also got unneeded armor, shoulder pads, and then pouches with 2 knives, 2 ankle knives on each leg. He's got a sword and a giant Uzi that's way too big.
He's a badass. He's ballistic. Also, he's a Republican, which there's a very awkward joke in here about that. And so they find the case. It turns out it's a case of drugs. It might be heroin, it might be cocaine. Ballistic just throws it up in the air and shoots it, and just starts snowing cocaine. Which I don't fully know the application of that, but I feel like
the full application of that is that we now know what they were thinking when they created Ballistic.
Yeah, but like he and Bruce should maybe cover their nose or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, there's just cocaine falling now. That can't be bad. That can't be good at all.
I mean, God forbid if this was a 2019 story, they shoot it up in the air and it starts raining fentanyl. Like they're just dead.
Jesus.
What
What if the white substance was anthrax?
Yeah, that would be really. I mean, yeah, they literally have no idea. They don't test or anything. All they see is there's a white powder, and they know it's some kind of shady thing that this shady group wants. So
Ballistic just goes, it's heroin or cocaine, one of the two.
And this issue
like,
ends.
wait, can I try to identify it? Or nope, you're just throwing it. Okay.
Throw it in the air and blast it.
Now he solves all his problems.
This issue ends with Ballistic just being like, "Later, man."
Yeah.
He invites Batman to come to the West Coast and hang out. Batman's like, "Hey, I don't know if you looked around, but there's this giant earthquake in my city." So he's gonna deal with that. And maybe we'll see Ballistic again. Probably not. Definitely not in this episode. I'm not sure when he appears again, but I did look. Apparently, he dies in the final issue of Infinite Crisis.
Of course he does.
I don't know if it's with the group, but I know a lot of the Bloodlines characters die during Infinite Crisis. But I'm not sure how like grouped together they are, or if it's spread out. I don't remember.
I should mention that it was. Did you mention that Sal Buscema was on finishes for this?
Oh no, I skipped over that. But
I thought it was okay for this issue.
Yeah, I mean, Ballistic is really of the period. Honestly, not even of the period. This is 1999. He's of the period like 3 years before this. Pretty very dated and cringy, but like the character himself, like the way he acts, besides shooting the drugs in the middle of the air, like he's not too ridiculous. He just looks ridiculous and has a weird name.
I for sure thought he was going to be some stupid villain, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out, he's actually a good guy.
Yeah, I didn't hate this issue.
Neither did I.
Not memorable or anything, but it was fine.
It could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
Michael, do you have anything to add on this issue?
No. Like, while I was reading it, like, if you just read, like, most of his dialogue, other than a few cringy jokes, it's like, this Ballistic's not a bad character. Like, he maybe teams up with Batman. He's a little cocky or whatever. But then, like, you just look at him and he just looks ridiculous. It's like, no wonder no one almost never uses him. But
I would say, yeah, looking at him is jarring because he doesn't look like he's in the right comic book.
No.
But other than that, yeah, I don't think he ruins anything, which, like I said, could have been a lot worse. Especially knowing how issues from this Clone Saga were. Like, this could have been so much worse, and I was pleasantly surprised it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But with that, we're going to go to our next issue, which would be Detective Comics number 724 by Chuck Dixon and Jim Aparo, and then we have a pretty good looking Brian Stelfreeze cover. And he's been doing the covers on Detectives going back to the first part of Aftershocks. I like this cover here, but this is the Grieving City. Batman and Nightwing stop some looters again. So the theme of looting is continuing through this episode, albeit not interconnected wise. Just I guess, well, we need them to fight someone, so we chose looters. Though Nightwing's basically just a cameo in here. We see more of the unsteadiness of Gotham City as Nightwing almost falls off a gargoyle. And then we cut to a board meeting with Bruce Wayne and Lucius Fox as a woman is giving a pitch for the memorial that they're going to build to honor those people that have fallen in Gotham City, as the death toll is now approaching 1 million people.
Which is insane.
It's an insane amount. Like, absolutely crazy.
So I live in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is like 1.5 million population.
Right.
Goodness.
1 million dead. That's wild.
It really is just. And they even mentioned in the book, like, it's an uncalculable like amount of people. So I feel like they kind of, because the death toll numbers were high, but like it's jumped up so high from the last time. Like I feel like it was a couple. Like I feel like it was in the 10,000s the last time they talked about it. So we're jumping from like that to 1 million is just way too big of a jump. Even if we were like 100,000, it's way too big of a jump. But it is comic books. But Bruce Wayne is against this memorial to honor those people that have fallen, as he wants to kind of not. He doesn't want to just honor them a memorial because it would be a monument to failure. He wants to put something out that would recognize the future and hopeful prosperity in Gotham City, and I kind of like that. This is the second time we've seen kind of Bruce in these moments where he kind of comes off very heavy with wanting to do the right thing and help Gotham and make sure it gets better. The rest of this issue is about this other rich playboy that lives by Bruce Wayne. Is his name Davenport?
I think so.
Like Devis Davenport?
Devlin Davenport.
Devlin Davenport. There we go. Thank you, Michael. As he's getting angry that the construction has to shut off power as Alfred and Harold are moving the equipment to try to cover up the Batcave that we talked about the last episode. And then we see Tim Drake come in for like a one panel cameo. Barbara Gordon's exhausted with Jim, but she's going to get right back to work. We see the Gotham City mayor for a second, and I don't know who this mayor is at all. She's not even named. But they're trying to ask her the comments of the 1 million death toll. Which she obviously just doesn't give a comment. And we get back to Davenport, who he wants to sue the city because his building has fallen over and the excavation crews want to cut through it to make sure they have an easier travel passage to get supplies where it needs to get to. And he somehow thinks that building is going to be upright again somehow. It's comical how much of like an evil tycoon this guy is. So what Batman does is in the middle of the evening, he takes like the excavator and just plows through the building and does it himself, and then jumps out. As the construction workers are talking about Batman being a myth, and they mark this up as an act of God and miracle. We get a comical moment with Davenport back at his mansion watching the news to see that his building's now been completely obliterated, and we get Bruce at the grave of his parents remaking the vow that he's going to protect Gotham City. And that's this issue. I thought it was all right. I thought I still like Aparo's pencils. I thought the sequence at the gravesite of the Waynes was probably the standout highlight for me with the rain falling down. But what did you guys think? I thought this was pretty good. If not, I read a little bit fast. This was pretty one and done.
Yeah, I kind of glossed through this. I didn't find the Davenport stuff interesting at all. I was kind of hoping those first like 2 pages with Nightwing were a lot longer.
I agree.
But I didn't have any. Again, I didn't have any problems with it. It was just big meh to me. This was the weak. In my opinion, this was the weakest issue that we read.
I feel the
Or at
weakest
least-
for me is the de-evolution one, just because I really thought the premise could have been executed better.
Yeah, I think I like this issue more than the 2 previous ones, I think. Definitely read really fast, and by the end I was surprised it was over, but the art is great by Jim Aparo, especially his drawings of Batman in the costume and taking his mask off in the rain and all that. He draws that really well. I liked how he drew Nightwing too, but he only showed up in a couple panels.
The slick back hair. Just the first time we've seen that. Usually he's either gotten the mullet or like kind of the messy longer hair. So it's weird to see it kind of short and slick back.
Yeah, I did think that was funny too, but like but then when I got past that, it's like, oh, he looks pretty cool here. The little Barbara moment was good. I like Barbara a lot, but we always see her like a page. But the Davenport character was comical and over the top. Yeah, it's a decent issue, I'd say.
I feel like the theme of this episode is like, it's a decent issue. There's just not a lot to say because I felt like these stories were just kind of like one note very much. But I guess we're gonna close out with a 2-parter. So you got that to go in with it. But Michael, take us to Shadow of the Bat number 78.
Okay. So yeah, this one is by Shadow of the Bat 78. It's written by Alan Grant, drawn by Mark Buckingham. And this is another one. I think all the Shadow of the Bat issues in here have been Glenn Orbick covers. He's
Covered.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said I've been liking the covers to Shadow of the Bat.
Yeah, me too. Like it's a little out of the ordinary. Sometimes the realisticness is a little surprising, but I'm really liking it. Yeah, I looked up Glenn Orbick. He's known for a lot of like prose book covers too. Like, and he often has a really like pulpy style. He had the cover to a couple Stephen King books, Joyland and Colorado Kid. They were in this hard case crime imprint that was a deliberate. The point of the imprint was like homaging the old pulp stories and serials. So those 2 covers are both really pulpy looking. He passed away a few years back. Don't remember when exactly, but yeah, I like covers. So yeah, this story is called The Blank Generation Part 1, Corporate Nightmares. And we begin with this crazy heat vision POV sequence with someone narrating about sinners and how he must absorb people's thoughts and leave them with bliss and whatever, and you don't really know what's going on at first. Actually, the very first thing we see is this like to go with the corporate nightmares thing. It's like a businessman with no face and a bowler hat. It almost looks like The Question. I think it's more supposed to be like the was Matisse the artist who did the apple floating in front of the guy's face. Kind of like,
I have no idea. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. To forget the artist, I remember. I knew it at one point.
I think it's Matisse. I'll have to look it up later. Anyway, so yeah, the art in those sequences is interesting. It just now reminds me like very brief times we saw the radar vision in the Netflix Daredevil, kind of that same idea, the heat vision.
A little bit, yeah.
So anyway, after that, we see Batman coming back to the Batcave. Alfred's apologizing for not being as good of a butler or something, but he's got like a big plate of fruit or something. It seems like he's doing a perfectly good job, all things considered. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so he tells Bruce he's got a meeting with Lucius Fox, and then we see a quake shelter where we see this family. They've got people like in these beds with these like blanket curtains hung up between them, which that was something I thought was interesting to see, like how like everyone who's out of homes, they've got these shelters set up. We're seeing how regular Gotham citizens are dealing with this quake. And the dad in this family, we briefly spotlight. He's bored and has no self-esteem because he's been out of a job because of the quake, and they're just being taken care of at this shelter. And lucky for him, they Wayne Enterprises needs just anyone who's currently unemployed from the quake for a mystery job. So he comes along with them to the meeting, and then yeah, we see that the business meeting that Bruce is going to, all the businesses in Gotham, the big ones except Wayne Enterprises, are pulling out because the city's been destroyed and most of their employees are dead and so forth. And Bruce brought this guy along to try and help convince them to not pull out, like show them an ordinary guy's perspective, I suppose. Meanwhile, Mad Hatter's like digging for something with his goons, and we find out it's just his hat collection in an underground vault, which I saw coming pretty early. That was gonna just be something like that, but yep. And uh so let's see. Does okay, yeah, so this does get resolved in this issue, sort of. The After the businesses pull out, they fail to convince them. The guy who they brought in from the shelter, he gets this idea that they that Wayne Enterprises should give little grants to people to start their own businesses in Gotham. Like I think they said 10,000 or so. And yeah, that sounds like a good idea on paper. I don't Doesn't seem like it would be very practical in real life. I don't know, but like
No idea if that's practical in real life.
yeah, it's very sunny look at businesses in an earthquake situation. I don't know. I almost felt like something out of a Capra movie or something. Like got George Bailey stuff going on here or something. But
I mean, it might work just in the fact that Bruce Wayne has an unlimited amount of money.
true. Anyway, the villain who was seeing heat vision and absorbing sins or whatever, he's I don't know, he was babbling about sinners or something. He's Narcosis is this guy's name. Never heard of this guy before. But he's got a white shroud thing over his head and a black cape, black getup, and he gasses people into blissful delirium. And I guess he's also got weird delusions about like helping sinners or something. I don't know. That it's kind of funny to me. Like he was talking all grandiosely like that whenever we're seeing things from his point of view, but then like when he was talking to Mad Hatter, he sounded his voice, his character voice, kind of came off to me more as just like mundane criminal type stuff. But I don't know. I've never read this character before. This is the first time I've seen him. So he wants to gas the city, save everybody from their misery, and Mad Hatter agrees to help him if he gives him his hat when they're done, his hood shroud thing. And yep, that just sets the stage for second part of the two-parter. Sorry if that went on a little long. I feel like they kind of crammed three different plots into this issue if they get resolved in the next one. So yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought this was all right. It We don't get a lot of Mad Hatter stories, and I think he's one of Batman's more underused villains. I think the best
definitely.
Mad Hatter story we gotten was in Gotham Central. At least that's my favorite Mad Hatter story, which is a story in Gotham Central called Unresolved. But I felt like Mad Hatter's just coming off completely comical and not a threat, like he comes off in Gotham Central. At least that's how I felt about it. What is his name? Narcosis.
Yeah.
I thought he had an all right design. Never seen him before either, but I mean, he's a very forgettable Batman villain, as we haven't seen him in anything else really. So, Vince, how'd you feel?
Pretty much the same. I mean, I don't. Granted, I haven't read a ton of his stories, but I don't really like. I'm totally fine with Mad Hatter being a little campy. So I thought he was. It's a little over the top, like that. He just wants a new hat.
I think I'm fine with him being campy. It's just that I thought it was too over the top.
Yeah. But I thought overall he's fun here. Narcosis. So Narcosis first appeared in Shadow the Bat number 50. So he's an Alan Grant creation. He appears in 50 through 52, and then these issues, and little spoiler for when we'll reveal it again in 2 minutes or whatever, he dies in this arc, so we're never going to see Narcosis again.
Oh, he's still dead after this. Okay.
Well, I mean, even though he died, death in comics means nothing. So
yeah. I mean, if someone really wants to dig him up.
So Tom King
literally
got 15 issues left. Work in Narcosis.
Yes.
You can do, if you can work in Phantasm, you can work in Narcosis.
And the whole like, let's make 1,000 small businesses instead of the 8 megacorps. It's like some really flimsy logic, but it's like whatever. I mean, if Bruce Wayne just wants to throw investment money into the toilet, like maybe not the worst idea ever.
It's not, well, Lucius Fox explains it as basically the theory is that most of these are going to fail, but hey, if you get 5 that work, then hey, then you get a lot of money. So like it's very big needle and haystack kind of ways to do it. It's not quite Joker burning a pile of money in Dark Knight useless with your money, but it's, I feel, pretty damn close.
Yeah, this is a terrible investment strategy.
Yeah, don't. It's like investing in penny stocks, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Given the size of the businesses that are pulling out of Gotham, it's kind of crazy that they think multiple megacorps like that could rise from this crazy strategy, you know, like, or like major employers as they called them. Like, yeah.
Well, these major employers, if you caught the names, are Lions Furniture, which is clearly a take on Wolf Furniture, Macrosoft, which is Microsoft. So those are just a couple that I caught there. Oh, and Firewall Tires, which I forget which one. That one's, I forget which ones that is, but
I mean, it'd be far.
yeah. But I thought it was interesting to note that, yeah, it's the DC universe, so all the companies should technically be fictional. But also in like the opening episodes of the show, we had a Mark McGuire reference for baseball, so nothing matters, nothing makes sense. But closing out this episode, Shadow of the Bat number 79, still Grant and Buckingham. The cover of this issue is the cover of Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. So there you go for that. This story wraps up. Vince kind of said it already, but Narcosis will die in the ensuing battle between Batman and Mad Hatter, as Batman tracks down that it is Mad Hatter, it is Narcosis that's behind the gassings, as he goes and investigates the last place he kept him and sees that his body's not there. Therefore, he must have escaped. The Batmobile he's running around in this episode is still like the souped up monster truck one that we saw in the last episode, which I liked that continuity there. So it was a good paying attention with the crossover with is it Way of the Fish, Shadow of the Fist? I can't even remember what it was called anymore.
Brotherhood.
Brotherhood of the Fist. So Batman's still driving around that souped up monster truck that basically looks like the same Batmobile from the Colt by Starlin. But the guy that was pulled in for the suggestion is trying to talk people into bringing their ideas to Wayne Enterprises, and Alfred gets a call from Lucius saying instead of 10,000, he wants to do 100,000 ideas and finance that. So an even bigger risk. No, don't stop. But Batman tracks Narcosis and Mad Hatter to their hideout, where the plan is Narcosis is going to use that gas to make everyone in Gotham feel bliss. Batman stops it. I particularly like I thought the fight with Narcosis was pretty good. As Batman's trying to dodge his gas and his gauntlets, and he redirects the gas back at him, which takes Narcosis out, and then Mad Hatter tries to mind control Batman by stuffing a hat on him, which Batman just kind of powers through and pulls off. So completely useless. But then Mad Hatter basically he shoots a bunch of butane containers which blow up, killing Narcosis. But the gas is able to be dispersed and not reach the city in time. So Batman saves the day, but with the death of Narcosis, and with that death, he says he's going to put Mad Hatter away from a long, long time as he just punches him in the face. The end. I thought this was an all right two-parter crossover.
Yeah.
But like I said, everything this episode, I was like, it was all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. I feel like it just kind of goes in that mediocre would be the way to describe everything. You can almost like write every episode if you had a note section of this that was certainly an issue of Batman. That was certainly an issue of Detective Comics.
My favorite moment is when the one goon, the guy who's already been affected by the gas, he's like, I don't want to fight. And Batman's just like, I can't risk it. And just punches
him. I can't risk it, and just punches him out. That was pretty good.
And even after Narcosis goes down, the final few pages where it's just Batman basically just chasing around Mad Hatter and there's fire everywhere. You can always deliver some good art when there's a superhero fight like in the middle of fire or rain or anything like that.
I agree.
Visual effects and everything.
Batman's ears are pretty big in this issue. I love how they just completely compress when Mad Hatter plops the hat on him to mind control him. Like, what kind of material are the ears on this cowl made out of? Do they just fold down? Do they crunch? And then they're just back to normal? I don't know. Just a silly detail, but go on.
So how does Mad Hatter's hat not work on him? Is that just a thing where like
I'm guessing it's because inside Batman's cowl he has some sort of tech that prevents it.
Yeah. I guess that's just, most of the time you just have to do that. It's like, oh, the villain's gimmick is entirely useless against the main character.
Yeah.
Because he's Batman.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's literally because he's Batman is kind of the explanation you're going to get.
Yeah, but he at least still gets to control his goons and stuff, so he's not entirely ineffective.
You could also maybe sum up the fact that since the hats were left in all those destroyed areas for so long, maybe they don't work.
Yeah.
But then I'm giving the story too much credit because it was clearly not thought through.
Yeah. I like though how we're kind of running through, and maybe when we get to like a bigger benchmark, maybe we'll run through it. But we're kind of going through a checklist of Batman villains.
Right. So I guess we want to run it. We've seen Two-Face. We've seen Mad Hatter. We've seen Mr. Freeze. We've seen Clayface. We saw we saw a bunch of villains in Arkham.
We've seen Penguin, Ratcatcher, Cluemaster,
Taraxis, Joker,
Firefly.
I'm trying to think of major ones we haven't seen yet, though. We haven't seen Riddler. No, we did see Riddler.
Well,
He was in the Arkham issue.
yeah, little side story.
We've seen Clue Master.
I mean, we've seen most of the main ones, but a lot of them are so far little minor peak.
Hey, we've even seen Bane, Vince, because he
Yeah.
was in the Admiral issue.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
We'll start seeing, similar to this Shadow of the Bat arc, we'll start seeing arcs devoted to characters. We saw Poison Ivy in the Catwoman issues.
That's true. So I guess we have made it through kind of everyone.
But we haven't gotten to Harley Quinn yet. Keep tuning
No.
in for when we get to that.
That's far down the line.
Yep. All right. I think that's pretty much everything this week.
Yep.
That concludes our Aftershock segment. And next week, I believe maybe we're going to Washington.
I know next episode we will be concluding Road to No Man's Land Volume 1.
Okay. Well, tune in to see what the hell we're talking about then. Thanks for watching this one, and get home safe.
Wait, real quick. It's Magritte, not Matisse, was the one who did the apple floating painting.
All right.
Yep.
So,
That's all. Art
go,
history.
go educate yourself on fine art as well. Bye-bye.